Hello, everybody, wherever you may be, from coast to coast and sea to shining sea. Welcome back to your solar weather update. This is the second cut of this. My goodness, way too many mistakes in the first one, but that's what makes us human, right? This will cover from December the 29th through January 1st of 2023. Let's get into it real quick. The A1A gives a good illustration of what the sun is doing right now here on two. If you look at 2 o'clock, you see a large area of brightness that is going off the west limb. We're losing a sunspot region there, but replacing it there at 8 o'clock is yet another sunspot region that's of fairly similar size, should be very, very close to that same size. At 10 p.m. as well, that's the next sunspot region to hit the north part of the sun. Magnetometer view. Here is a view of all of those sunspots. And to all of you, a very happy new year. Thank you for watching. Sorry to have to redo the weather, but I don't want to put my name on something that's wrong. So there you go. Coronal hole map 59 facing Earth. We are not getting a higher solar wind component. It is increasing. So watch for solar wind to increase here in the next couple of days and some degrading noise floors. It's going to happen because of coronal hole there 59, as well as the next one coming in off of the eastern limb. 3 days solar flare detection. You can see today's been pretty active. It was active 2 days ago as well. We've had an M2.2 and an M2.4 flare. Both look like they're going to be pretty strong. No word yet if they are earthbound. We'll have to wait to see. Solar indices, your SFI there is 162, so it did come up a little bit like I thought earlier in the first show. I think this number is going to stabilize right about here and then stay within 150 to 165 here for the next few days. So good conditions from a solar flux index condition. Now, the D layer is another example of what is going wrong. If you're in the southern hemisphere, this is a problem because you can see the D layer global absorption level is way up there, pretty close to 20 megahertz. In fact, if you're in the southern hemisphere, say somewhere in South America, or as the sun is heading towards the west and getting in towards Australia, expect 40 meters to be attenuated by more than 5 dB. Could be a very loud day there, a very hard day to make calls on 40-meter daytime. KP index, you see KP3, and this has been great for the aurora. The aurora workers, like people that like to work the aurora borealis, look at this, and expect this as the night goes on here in North America for this to continue to come towards the west. Great way to work the aurora tonight if you'd like to. The chance in the northern for the aurora borealis, definitely there. Aurora australis, not so much, but definitely in the north, you've got some good aurora opportunity if you want to work the aurora borealis. We'll take a look at how far south this goes. This is courtesy of Canada, and the Canadian forecast unit does a really good job of letting people know right where that aurora is going to be visible, right through most of the northern parts of all the provinces of Canada and most of Alaska tonight. Should get the full aurora. Might be able to see a little bit of it if you're south of the line here that they show. Next 3 days for the 3-day geomagnetic forecast, no storming is in the forecast, that's for sure. But we do have some loud conditions. Expect KP, maybe a noise floor at S2, S3, maybe S3, S4, even as high as an S5 coming up through Sunday. We'll have to see how that looks. I expect noise floors to start to drop over the late weekend, though, so better conditions are coming. Let's take a look now at the QRZ conditions. SFI 162, sunspot number 113. A-index is getting up there now. It's a 10. We want it to be below that number. K-index is 3. That's unsettled. Signal to noise level S2 to S3 now. And that MUF over Boulder is incorrect. It says 5.10 megahertz. It's been wrong most of the day. But the outlier here is the BZ latitude, minus 7.4. That is a very big negative BZ latitude. Solar wind also up another 40 kilometers per second, so up to 482.8 kilometers per second versus where it was a couple of hours ago. So that solar wind now is coming up from coronal hole number 59. That's why we're getting that solar wind component coming up. And with the BZ latitude that far negative, we're getting what's called QSB, or, for amateur radio, we think of it as fading, right? That's because most of the sun's radiation is going south and part of it going north. So the ionosphere is not stable. It's not as stable as it is if both hemispheres get an equal amount of radiation from the sun. So that's why we have QSB in the forecast today. But I think the HF conditions will be better than this. It just depends on where you're at in the world. We'll take a look at that here from an earlier MUF map, which really illustrates things quite well. 10 meters right about the mid parts of the provinces of Canada in North America today. And it's not a terribly long opening if you're way at the north. It may be, an hour, but as you head south, the 10-meter band gets much better. Northern Hemisphere tomorrow, we'll take a look at that here and give you an idea. See how the line there for 10 meters is basically right to about the mid part of the provinces of Canada. Well, if you go over to Europe, that would translate to about Denmark, the border of Denmark south. So the southern border of Denmark south, there'll be some 10-meter opportunities for you in Europe. Now, of course, Scotland, that leaves Scotland out, and it leaves Norway and Sweden out as well. So if you're in an area of the world that can work 10, expect to find some good DX, possibly on the 15-meter or the 12-meter or 17-meter bands, because folks that are in other areas of the world simply can't get all the way to 10 meters. In the South, it's the same thing. Now, in the South, the 10-meter band is going north. That's how it's working. So if you're, say, for example, in Auckland, New Zealand, you'll get 10 meters. But as you head south towards Wellington, it starts to dip. And Wellington might get a little bit of 10 meters here over the weekend, but Christchurch will not. That's about the dividing line. So Christchurch, about 12 meters. On Wellington, on Auckland, probably more on the 10-meter band. Same for Australia. Australia is going to get 10 meters all the way through to Melbourne, but you go down to Tasmania, that's going to be where 12 meters or possibly the 15-meter band is going to be. So it's a challenging forecast today, and it's basically because of the way that the 10-meter band and the other bands are stacked around the world. There's quite a bit of distance today between, say, 10 meters and 17 meters on the map. Your forecast, amateur and shortwave radio. Expect QSB today, Northern Hemisphere, all right? It's going to be just because we've got a very, very south-pointed BZ latitude. SFI should continue to remain near that 150 or higher line through the weekend, so some great conditions. Problem is the noise floors. Expect noise floors to increase into the weekend, but then around Saturday night, I expect things to start to quiet down finally. We're seeing noise right about the 20-meter band in amateur radio, 19 meters in shortwave down. So most of it's going to be, below 30 meters, but still, it's going to be there. Expect noise floors possibly S3 to S5 until Saturday. Voice bands, Northern Hemisphere, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10 meters. If you're south of about 55 degrees north, this at 60, it should be 55. Equatorial latitudes, 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. Southern Hemisphere, north of about 45, about 40 degrees almost south, so 40 degrees south. So roughly the Wellington line there in New Zealand, you're going to be on 10 meters north of there, and you'll be 12 or 15 or 17 if you're south of there. Data modes should be 30 to 10 meters in the north, mid, and the south hemispheres. Noise floors tonight on amateur radio might be a little loud here for amateur radio bands, but not too bad. Nighttime amateur radio bands open 160, 80, 60, 40, 30. Your best DX on your maximum usable frequency at sunset. Then work your lower bands to 40 and 80 meters overnight. Daytime shortwave, great solar flux index where you get good ionospheric charge. The problem is the noise floors are there, right? So if you're below 19 meters, so say, for example, below 15 megahertz and lower, you're going to have more noise, especially in frequencies below 10 megahertz. So if you're on 31 or 25, it's going to be a little more noisy than 22, 19, 15, and 13. It's kind of working that way. But those bands should be open and some signals should be strong because of the good SFI. The problem is because we have a southern pointed BZ latitude and most of the sun's radiation, I should say more of it, is going to the south than to the north. Expect some fading even on the shortwave bands tonight. Nighttime shortwave, good, just a super SFI, good noise floor, today, but tomorrow getting worse. Expect to have a little more noise in the bands on shortwave, and possibly some fading in the late afternoon into evening hours in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the south, you should have great conditions. It's going to be a great day in the south. Nighttime, shortwave, 120, 90, 75, 60, 49, 41, 31, 25, 22. And the 19-meter band is open for about 3 hours after sunset in the southern hemisphere right now because they're in the longer days of the year, and the signals will simply fade away. I'd like to thank you for coming. I've missed you guys an awful lot. We'll get back, and my hope is to do a show tomorrow for Ham Radio Live. Should be at 20 UTC. I hope to see you then. Should be a fun show. Until then, wherever you may be, God bless you. very happy New Year to you and yours, wherever you may be. And thank you so much for sticking with me through a tough time. Goodbye, everybody.